Hello, and welcome to Support for Worried Homeschooling Parents, a place dedicated to supporting you on your homeschooling journey. Today, I would like to read you another story from another parent. Alright, so homeschooling is cancelled. Forever. I'm sitting in what used to be my living room, which now smells faintly of coffee and desperation. You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, it all started about 2 months ago when my beautiful, energetic, and apparently unemployable 8-year-old twin boys, Leo and Max, got kicked out of their third school. Not asked to leave. Not encouraged to explore other options. Kicked out. I'm a single mom to the two sweetest, most chaotic forces of nature you will ever meet. Leo and Max are not bad kids. I really need to get that out of the way. They're bright, they're funny, and they have more energy than a small power plant. Their teachers all said the same thing. He's so bright, but he just can't sit still. He has great ideas, but he disrupts the class. The final call came from a principal who sounded just as tired as I felt. He said they were wonderful kids, but they weren't thriving in a traditional classroom. They needed a different environment, one that could handle their, and I quote, boundless physical enthusiasm. That's a new one. It's just a very polite, educational way of saying, your kids turned my classroom into a wrestling ring, and I found a sandwich in the hamster cage. I hung up the phone, and for the first time, I wasn't angry. I was just defeated. 3 schools in 4 years. I felt like I was failing them, or the system was failing them. We were running out of options, and the thought of finding another school that would call me in 3 months with the same complaints was just too much. I looked at their 2 smiling faces, currently using couch cushions to surf down the stairs, and a thought sparked in my exhausted brain. A dangerous, hopeful, and completely insane thought. What if the problem wasn't them? What if it was the schools? What if the different environment they needed was right here? And so, the great homeschooling experiment began. I dove in headfirst, fueled by a mix of sheer desperation and a truly delusional amount of optimism. I spent a week falling down an internet rabbit hole of curated curriculums and blogs by serene-looking moms in linen dresses who all seemed to teach calculus while baking sourdough from scratch. I was sold. This was it. This was the answer. I was going to be the Mary Poppins of homeschooling. Our days would be filled with educational nature walks, science experiments that fizzed gently, and history lessons brought to life with puppet shows. I ordered a curriculum that came in a box so big I could barely drag it through the door. It was beautiful. Pristine workbooks, new art supplies, and a laminated, colour-coded daily schedule. I spent a whole evening lovingly pinning that schedule to the fridge. 9 a.m, math. 10 a.m, creative writing. 11 a.m, outdoor exploration. It was a work of art. I imagined my boys finally free from a rigid classroom, blossoming into the little scholars I knew they were. We'd read classics on a blanket in the yard. We'd learn fractions by baking cookies. It was going to be perfect. Looking at that schedule and the neat stacks of books, I truly believed I had finally found the solution. I had no idea I was just drafting a battle plan for a war I was about to lose, spectacularly. Day 1, the Great Schedule Rebellion. I woke up smiling, made coffee, and chirped, "Good morning, my little students. It's time for math." Leo looked at the schedule, then at me, then back at the schedule, and declared that 9 a.m. was actually build a fortress out of every cushion we own time. Max agreed. Within 10 minutes, my living room was a landscape of pillow barricades and blanket tunnels. The math workbooks were untouched. Fine, time to pivot. Okay, new plan. Science time. I pulled out the classic baking soda and vinegar volcano. This, I thought, was foolproof. What kid doesn't love an explosion? I should have specified a contained explosion. I might have slightly misread the instructions and maybe added a little too much vinegar. The volcano didn't fizz. It erupted. A geyser of sticky red liquid shot up to the ceiling, then rained down on the kitchen, the dog, and a very surprised Max, who thought it was the best thing ever. While I was trying to stop him from making lava angels on the floor, Leo discovered the slippery floor was perfect for sock skating. By noon, the house was a disaster. The schedule was in the trash, and my Mary Poppins vibe was cracking. The next few days, or were it weeks? It's all a long, chaotic blur we're no better. Our attempt at English Lit involved me reading Treasure Island out loud. I got 3 pages in before Max decided he was Long John Silver and the dog was his mutinous crew. Leo, meanwhile, became fixated on a fly buzzing against the window, providing a running commentary on its journey for a solid 15 minutes. The book was eventually abandoned and used as a ramp for a toy car. They even developed specialties. Max became a squirrel. I'd suddenly be missing things: pencils, the TV remote, my car keys, a single slice of cheese. I'd find them hours later stashed in the weirdest places. Inside a rain boot, tucked into a houseplant, or arranged under a sofa cushion. Leo became a climber. He discovered that by scaling our big bookshelf, he could get a perfect view of our neighbour's TV. No amount of pleading could convince him that trigonometry was more interesting than Mr. Henderson's afternoon game shows. Physical education was the most predictable disaster. I thought, I'll tire them out and put on a workout video. Their version of jumping jacks involved launching themselves off the sofa. A burpee was just an excuse to drop to the floor and roll under the coffee table. The whole thing ended with the tragic death of my favourite lamp and a permanent scuff mark on the TV. My own sanity declined right along with the state of my house. The hopeful, organised teacher of week 1 was long gone. By week 3, I was a frazzled woman who considered coffee a food group, wore the same yoga pants for days, and had discovered the profound, healing silence of hiding in the pantry for 5 minutes, just to breathe. I wasn't a teacher anymore. I was a crisis manager, a zookeeper, and a referee. Then came the final day, the breaking point. It happened during what I mistakenly thought was progress. I'd set them up with paper and paints, art time. And for the first time in weeks, it was quiet. A deep, profound, and absolutely terrifying quiet. For 20 minutes, not a single shout, crash, or argument. I was in the kitchen, actually drinking a hot cup of coffee, thinking, this is it. We've turned a corner, they're finally focused. I walked back into the living room, a proud smile on my face, ready to praise their masterpieces. The room was white, everything. The floor, the sofa, the TV, the dog who was sleeping in his bed, now looking like a furry ghost. And in the middle of it all sat Leo and Max. They were also covered, head to toe, in a thick layer of white dust. They'd found the 5-pound bag of flour I'd bought for our fraction cookies. They weren't fighting. They weren't yelling. They were just sitting there, completely serene, patting little white clouds into the air. Staring at the quiet, apocalyptic beauty of it all, I knew. I had made a huge, monumental mistake. But before I tell you what happened next, and how I even started cleaning up what looked like an exploded bakery, if you're enjoying my disaster story, or maybe feeling a little too seen right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more home educating stories. If you've ever hidden from your own children, you're in the right place. Join the community so you don't miss the next misadventure. I didn't yell. Honestly, I was too tired to yell. I looked at the flour-caked walls, the ghost dog, and my 2 little abominable snowmen, and I just surrendered. I walked right into the middle of the room, my socks crunching in the flour, and sat down on the floor with them. And then I started to laugh, a wild, unhinged, tears streaming down my face kind of laugh. The boys looked at me, confused, and then they started laughing too. And there we were, the three of us, sitting in the ruins of my homeschooling dream, laughing until our stomachs hurt. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. This wasn't working. It wasn't their fault, and it wasn't my fault. I am their mom. I am their biggest cheerleader, their cook, their nurse, their monster slayer. But I am not their teacher, and my home, their safe space to be wild and chaotic, was not their classroom. By trying to make it be both, I was failing at everything. I was becoming a stressed, yelling mom, and they still weren't learning. Waving the white flag wasn't giving up on them. It was giving up on a plan that was hurting us all. That night, after hosing down the kids and calling a truce with the vacuum cleaner, I didn't look at curriculum blogs. I started researching schools. Not traditional ones, but something different. I spent hours reading about project-based learning, forest schools, and places that specialized in kids with that exact, boundless physical enthusiasm. I made calls. I talked to specialists. I fought for them in a way I hadn't before, not by trying to change who they were, but by finding a place that was built for them. And we found it. A small, independent school, 30 minutes away, with a huge outdoor space, tiny classes, and a philosophy built around hands-on projects. They don't just learn about history, they build Viking ships out of cardboard. They don't just do math problems, they use them to build a working catapult. They spend half the day outside. When I took them for a visit, I didn't have to convince them. They just belonged. The real lesson wasn't in any of those pristine workbooks. It's that my job isn't to be the perfect parent who can do everything. My job is to be the right parent for my kids. And for Leo and Max, that meant admitting I couldn't be their teacher and then fighting like hell to find someone who could. It's about knowing your strengths, but more importantly, it's about knowing your limits. So, yeah, homeschooling is officially, permanently cancelled in this house. The boys have been at their new school for a month now, and they are thriving. They come home tired, happy, and usually covered in mud, but it's a world of difference from being covered in flour. I'm pretty sure I found flour in a spice jar last week, and the dog still faintly smells like vinegar, but our home is our home again. It's a place for couch cushion forts, not failed math lessons. To all the parents out there who have ever had a spectacular fail, a moment where you just had to sit on the floor and laugh or cry, tell me about it in the comments. Let's all agree that we're doing our best, and sometimes the best thing you can do is wave the white flag, preferably before it gets covered in flour. Thanks for watching. You can click this video here for another story about home education, or this other video here.